Here's what you need to know about my brother Tyler. He's spent his entire adult life trying to prove he's more successful than me, despite having no idea what success I've actually achieved. He's a commercial real estate developer in Charleston, successful by most measures, wealthy by anyone's standards, and absolutely convinced that his corner office and country club membership represent the pinnacle of human accomplishment. Here's what he doesn't know. I'm a Navy captain with 23 years of service. I command a guided missile destroyer. I've navigated combat operations in 3 theaters. And 20 years ago at the Naval Academy, I set a golf record that still stands, a fact so buried in military athletics archives that you'd need security clearance and very specific reasons to go looking for it. I've never told him any of this. Not because I'm modest, but because watching him condescend to me has become a perverse form of entertainment. And because operational security in my position doesn't allow for the kind of public profile that would make my achievements visible to casual family scrutiny. The irony is perfect. My brother thinks he's the successful one because his success is loud, visible, quantifiable, discussed at dinner parties. Mine is classified, cross-referenced, and buried in Pentagon databases. This is the story of what happened when those two worlds collided on a golf course in Charleston on a Saturday afternoon that started with an invitation I should have declined. The text came on a Tuesday morning while I was reviewing navigation charts in my quarters aboard the USS Tempest. Tyler, Mom says you're on leave next week. Charity golf tournament Saturday. Need a 4th. You should come. Good networking. I stared at the message for a long moment, imagining the many ways I could respond. Can't. Busy planning naval exercises that involve more firepower than your entire net worth. Or, pass. I don't network, I command. Instead, I typed, not really my scene. His response came immediately. Come on, Misty, when's the last time you did something social? It's for the children's hospital. Plus, free lunch. The children's hospital part was manipulation. Tyler knew I'd spent 3 months last year coordinating medical evacuations during a humanitarian crisis in the South Pacific. He didn't know the details, he never asked for details, but he knew enough to use it as leverage. Fine, I replied. What time? 10 a.m. Magnolia Oaks Country Club. Try to wear something nice. I set the phone down and returned to my charts, already regretting the decision. The thing about having a brother like Tyler is that the condescension started early and never stopped. It just evolved, adapted, found new ways to manifest as we got older. When I was 17 and got my appointment to the Naval Academy, he was 20 and already working at our father's real estate firm. At my going-away dinner, he'd raised his glass and said, "To Misty, who's decided to take the hard road. Good for you, sis. Not everyone can handle business school." I'd smiled and said nothing. The Naval Academy wasn't the hard road. It was the only road I'd ever wanted. When I graduated, top 15% of my class commissioned as an ensign, he'd been too busy closing a major development deal to attend the ceremony. He'd sent flowers with a card that read, "Congrats on finishing school, now comes the real work." Real work. As if navigating a 1,000-ton vessel through hostile waters wasn't real work. As if the responsibility for 300 sailors' lives wasn't real work. But Tyler's understanding of real work began and ended with profit margins and client dinners. When I made lieutenant, he'd been unimpressed. "Still in the Navy, huh? Thought you might have moved on by now. Government pay must be rough." I was making decent money, actually. Not Tyler money, but enough. And I had housing allowances, combat pay, bonuses. The Navy took care of its officers. But I didn't explain that. I just said, I'm managing. When I made lieutenant commander, he didn't notice. Or if he did, he didn't mention it. He was too busy showing me photos of his new beach house, his new Porsche, his new golf club membership. "You should come play sometime," he'd said. "If you can get away from whatever it is you do, communications, right?" Navigation, actually. Right, navigation. Important stuff, I'm sure. The dismissal in his tone was casual, reflexive. He genuinely believed that because he couldn't quantify what I did, it must not be particularly impressive. And I let him believe it. Because explaining would require revealing details I couldn't share. And because some small, petty part of me enjoyed knowing that he had no idea who I actually was. By the time I made captain, an achievement that put me in the top fraction of a percent of naval officers, Tyler had stopped asking about my career entirely. I'd become, in his narrative, the sister who'd chosen service over success, duty over wealth, and was presumably living a modest, unremarkable life somewhere on a military salary. The truth was more complicated. As a captain commanding a destroyer, I had responsibilities that kept me awake at night in ways Tyler's development deals never would. I made decisions about weapon systems, combat readiness, personnel deployment. I reported directly to admirals. I'd been to the Pentagon more times than I could count. I'd briefed members of Congress. But I lived quietly, drove a 10-year-old Toyota when I was stateside, rented a small apartment near the naval station, wore civilian clothes that came from department stores. Not because I was struggling, but because operational security in my position meant maintaining a low profile. Because drawing attention to myself meant drawing attention to my ship, my crew, my movements. Because invisibility was a tactical advantage. Tyler interpreted this invisibility as failure, and I let him. Until the golf tournament. The Magnolia Oaks Country Club was exactly what I expected. Manicured lawns, expensive cars in the parking lot, men in polo shirts with logos from companies I'd never heard of. The kind of place where success was measured by handicaps and membership fees. I'd worn khakis and a plain blue polo, comfortable, unremarkable. The kind of outfit that would let me blend into the background while Tyler networked with his real estate cronies. I found him on the practice green, surrounded by 3 other men in expensive golf attire. They were laughing about something, their voices carrying across the lawn with the confidence of people who'd never had to lower their volume for anyone. "Misty!" Tyler waved me over. "You made it! Guys, this is my sister. Misty, this is Robert Hayes, CFO at Palmetto Investments. James Burke, he owns the car dealerships on Highway 17. And Peter Hutchins, partner at Burke and Crane Legal." I shook hands with each of them, their grips firm and assessing. They were sizing me up, trying to place me in their social hierarchy. Navy captain didn't register as a category they recognized, so I became simply Tyler's sister. "What do you do, Misty?" Robert asked politely. "I work for the Navy." "Oh, nice. My cousin's a recruiter. Tough job, but important." Tyler laughed. "She's not a recruiter, Rob. She's... what is it again? Something with maps?" "Navigation specialist," I said, using the vague terminology I'd learned to deploy in civilian settings. "Right, navigation. She makes sure ships don't hit things." He clapped my shoulder. "Important work. Someone's gotta do it." The condescension was so casual he probably didn't even notice it. The other men nodded politely and changed the subject to golf scores and stock portfolios. We'd been assigned to different foursomes for the tournament. Tyler's group consisted of the 3 men I'd just met, all heavy hitters in Charleston's business community, all potential clients or partners for his development projects. They were standing near the first tee when someone approached Tyler. "Mr. Layton, we've got a situation. The 4th in your group, Mitchell from the hospital board. He can't make it. Emergency surgery. We're trying to find a replacement, but most folks are already assigned." Tyler frowned. "How long until we can get someone?" "Could be 30 minutes, maybe longer." "That'll throw off the whole schedule." Tyler glanced around, and his eyes landed on me. For a moment, I saw him consider it. Then he shook his head and laughed. "What about Misty?" The suggestion came from Robert. "Your sister? Can she play?" Tyler's laugh was immediate and dismissive. "She's never held a club in her life. Wouldn't know which end to use." His partner James looked doubtful. "We need someone serious, Tyler. This is for prize money. We're playing for the tournament title." I know. I'm just..." Tyler gestured helplessly in my direction. "She's not exactly... she's never..." He trailed off, leaving the implication hanging in the air. "She's not one of us. She doesn't belong here. She'd embarrass us." I stood there, holding a bottle of water I'd grabbed from the clubhouse, and felt the familiar weight of his assumptions settle around me like old clothes. The thing is, Tyler wasn't entirely wrong. I hadn't held a golf club in 20 years. But before that, before I'd gotten so busy commanding ships and coordinating operations, I'd been quite good at golf. Naval Academy good. Record-setting good. The kind of good that got you recruited by professional circuits if you hadn't already committed to a naval career. But Tyler didn't know that. How could he? I'd never mentioned it. and the record I'd set was buried in Academy Athletics archives, accessible only to people with very specific reasons to go looking. "I'll find someone else," the tournament organizer was saying. "Just give me a few minutes." As he walked away, I caught Tyler's expression. He looked relieved. Relieved that he wouldn't have to explain why his sister, his unsuccessful navigation specialist sister, couldn't play in his important charity tournament. I should have let it go. Should have found my own assigned foursome and played my round quietly, anonymously, the way I'd played everything in my civilian life. But something in his laugh, that casual, dismissive laugh, finally pushed me past the point of finding it amusing. "I can play," I said quietly. Tyler turned, surprised. "What?" "I can play, if you need a fourth." He exchanged glances with his partners. "Misty, it's a competitive tournament. These guys are shooting in the low 70s. It's not." "I know what it is." "Do you even have clubs?" "I can rent a set from the pro shop." James was looking at me skeptically. "When's the last time you played?" "It's been a while." "How long is a while?" 20 years, give or take." Robert laughed. 20 years? Misty, no offense, but this isn't the place to shake off rust. Maybe you should stick with your own group. This is serious." "I understand." Tyler was shaking his head. "Look, I appreciate you offering, but these guys are right. This isn't a casual round. There's money on the line. Reputation. We need someone who knows what they're doing." The tournament organizer was returning, another man in tow. "Found someone. This is—" "Actually," I interrupted, "I'm their fourth." Tyler's eyes widened. "Misty? Unless you have someone better," I looked at the organizer, "what's the handicap requirement for this flight?" +5 or better. "I can do that." "You can." Tyler stopped, started again. "You have a handicap?" "I did, 20 years ago." "And you think you can just pick it back up?" He wasn't being cruel now, just bewildered. "Misty, golf isn't like riding a bike. You can't just—" "Let me get clubs from the pro shop," I said. "If I'm terrible on the first hole, I'll withdraw. You can pull in a replacement. But at least let me try." The three business partners were exchanging uncertain looks. Finally, Robert shrugged. "Your call, Tyler. She's your sister." Tyler looked at me for a long moment. I could see him calculating the embarrassment if I played poorly, the awkwardness of having to explain why his sister couldn't handle a simple golf tournament. But we were running out of time, and the alternative was delaying the start. "Fine," he said finally, "but if you can't keep up, I'll withdraw. I promise." I walked to the pro shop, very aware of their eyes on my back. The pro shop was quiet, cool, smelling of leather and grass. A young woman behind the counter greeted me cheerfully. "Can I help you?" "I need to rent clubs." "Sure. What's your height?" 5'7". She disappeared into the back room and returned with a set of women's clubs. Standard rental set, nothing fancy but well-maintained. As she was processing the paperwork, an older man emerged from the office. He had the look of someone who'd spent 40 years on golf courses. Weathered skin, keen eyes, the kind of posture that spoke to decades of proper swing mechanics. He glanced at me, then at the clubs, then did a double take. "Excuse me," he said slowly, "do I know you?" "I don't think so." He stepped closer, studying my face. "What's your name?" "Misty Layton." His eyes widened. "Layton! Oh my God, you're—" He turned to the young woman. "Ashley, get the premium set from the back, the Titleist." "Sir, she just needs a rental." "Premium set, now." Ashley hurried to comply. The man extended his hand. "Tom Crawford, head pro here. Ma'am, I need to— Are you the Misty Layton from the Naval Academy?" My stomach dropped. "I attended the academy, yes. 20 years ago. You set the course record at the Navy Marine Corps Memorial Golf Course." "That was a long time ago." 58, he said it reverently. 14 under par, that record still stands. I checked last month when someone asked. Still stands. Ashley had returned with a different set of clubs. Expensive ones, the kind serious golfers used. "These are on the house," Crawford said. "It's an honor to have you play our course, Captain." I froze. "How did you?" "I'm retired Navy." 26 years. When you set that record, I was stationed at Annapolis. Everyone talked about it for months. The female midshipman who shot 14 under and made half the male golfers look like amateurs. He smiled. I followed your career after that. Naval aviator, then surface warfare. Made captain, 5 years ago? 6. Commanding officer of a destroyer now, if I remember correctly. Yes. He gestured to the clubs. These are yours for today. And captain, show them what Navy golf looks like. I took the clubs, my mind racing. This wasn't how this was supposed to go. I'd planned to play adequately, not embarrass Tyler, and fade back into quiet anonymity. But Tom Crawford had recognized me. And if he'd recognized me, he could tell others. Mr. Crawford, I said carefully, I'd appreciate it if you didn't. Say anything? Of course, ma'am. Operational security, I understand. He winked. But I'll be watching your round. Good luck out there. I carried the clubs back to the first tee, where Tyler and his partners were waiting. They looked at the premium clubs with confusion. Where did you get those? Tyler asked. Pro Shop. Those are $1,000 clubs. They had a rental special. He looked suspicious, but didn't push it. The tournament was about to start, and we needed to get moving. The first hole was a par 4, 380 yards, slight dogleg left. Standard opening hole, designed to let players settle into their rhythm. Tyler went first. Decent drive, maybe 260 yards, slightly right of the fairway. James followed with a similar distance, better accuracy. Robert pushed his drive right into the rough. Then it was my turn. I stepped up to the tee, feeling the weight of the club in my hands. 20 years. It had been 20 years since I'd done this competitively. But muscle memory is a strange thing. The body remembers what the mind forgets. I sat up over the ball, feet shoulder width apart, weight balanced, hands positioned exactly as they'd been trained to be 2 decades ago. I could hear my old coach's voice in my head. Smooth tempo, let the club do the work. I swung. The contact was pure. The ball launched off the club face with that perfect sound, that compression thump that every golfer recognizes as a well-struck shot. It climbed, held its line, and landed 290 yards out in the middle of the fairway. Silence. Tyler was staring at the ball's landing spot. Did you just? Beginner's luck, I said, stepping back. But it wasn't luck. It was hundreds of hours of practice, thousands of balls hit, technique drilled into neural pathways so deep that 20 years of absence couldn't erase them. The second shot was a 9-iron to the green. I left it 12 feet from the pin, 2-putted for par. Tyler made bogey, his partners made par and bogey. Nice hole, James said as we walked to the second tee. His tone was careful, reassessing. The second hole was a par 3, 165 yards over water. I hit a 7-iron that landed 8 feet from the pin, made the birdie putt. Tyler 3-putted for bogey. By the fifth hole, the pattern had become impossible to ignore. I was playing par or better on every hole. Tyler and his partners were playing well. They were good golfers, legitimate low 70s shooters. But I was playing better. Much better. Tyler's demeanor had shifted from condescending amusement to confused silence. His partners kept glancing at me between shots, their expressions moving from skepticism to respect to something approaching awe. On the 9th hole, a long par 5, I hit my drive 310 yards, my second shot onto the green, and 2-putted for birdie. As we made the turn, Tyler finally spoke. Where did you learn to play like this? Naval Academy. You played golf at the academy? Some. Misty, you're shooting 4 under through 9 holes. That's not some, that's... He stopped, searching for words. That's professional. I had a good front 9. This isn't luck, this is skill, serious skill. How have you never mentioned this? You never asked. The words hung between us, simple and devastating. Robert was studying me with new interest. What did you say you do for the Navy? I didn't, not specifically. Navigation specialist, Tyler said automatically. Then, less certainly, right? I didn't answer. We were moving to the 10th tee. The back 9 continued the pattern. I shot 3 under, finishing the round at 7 under par. Tyler shot 76. His partners shot 73, 75, and 77. We were the leading foursome in our flight. I was the leading individual score. As we finished the 18th hole, a small crowd had gathered near the clubhouse. Word had spread that someone was shooting well under par, and people had come to watch the finish. Tom Crawford was among them, standing slightly apart from the crowd, his arms crossed, a satisfied smile on his face. Tyler was signing his scorecard with shaking hands. 7 under, he muttered. You shot 7 under par. Decent round, I agreed. Decent? Misty, I've been playing this course for 5 years. The best I've ever shot is 71. You just shot 65 on your first round in 20 years. His partners were strangely quiet, their earlier confidence replaced by something that looked like shell shock. We were walking toward the clubhouse when it happened. Another foursomes was finishing their round, and one of them, a man in his 50s wearing a Magnolia Oaks polo, approached Tyler. Heard you had someone shoot 65 in your group. That you? My sister, actually. Tyler's voice was flat, still processing. Your sister? Is she a pro? No, she's... Tyler stopped. I don't actually know what she is. The man looked at me. You play professionally? No. College? Naval Academy. Really? When? Graduated 22 years ago. His eyes narrowed. Wait, Layton? Misty Layton? He turned to the crowd. Is Tom Crawford here? Crawford stepped forward. Right here. Is this her? The one who set the record? Crawford nodded slowly. The man's expression shifted to something approaching reverence. The course record? At the memorial course? Yes, Crawford confirmed. Tyler grabbed my arm. What are they talking about? What record? Before I could answer, Crawford spoke up, his voice carrying across the gathering crowd. Your sister set the all-time course record at the Navy Marine Corps Memorial Golf Course 20 years ago, 58, 14 under par. It's never been beaten. Not by male midshipmen, not by visiting pros, not by anyone. That's impossible, Tyler said weakly. It's documented, Crawford continued. I was stationed at Annapolis when it happened. The entire athletic department talked about it for months. She was offered professional opportunities. Turned them down to pursue her naval career. Her naval career, Tyler repeated. He turned to me, his face pale. Navigation specialist. That's what you told me. That's what you've always told me. You assumed that, I said quietly. I never said it specifically. Then what? Crawford's voice cut through again, and this time there was something in his tone that made everyone stop. Captain, he said, addressing me directly, formally, your academy record still stands. 20 years. The words landed like a depth charge. Tyler's laugh, the one he'd been holding, the nervous laugh that had been building, died in his throat. He stared at me. Captain? Yes. Captain as in 06, commanding officer, guided missile destroyer. The color drained from his face completely. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. You're a captain, he said slowly, in the Navy. Yes. You command a destroyer. Yes. For how long? 6 years as captain. 23 total years of service. Robert stepped forward. You're a Navy captain, and you've been listening to us talk about car sales for 4 hours? It seemed polite. James was staring at Tyler. You didn't know? Your own sister is a Navy captain, and you didn't know? Tyler couldn't seem to form words. His hands were trembling. The scorecard he'd been holding slipped from his fingers and fluttered to the ground. I thought, he started, stopped. You never said, quote, you never asked, I repeated. You assumed I was doing something low-level, something unimpressive, and I let you assume it because explaining would have required revealing classified information and because, honestly, it was easier than fighting your narrative. The crowd had gone completely silent. Everyone was watching now. Tournament participants, staff, members who'd gathered to see the scores. Crawford spoke again. Ma'am, I should mention, your round today was 1 stroke off your academy record, on a course you've never played, after 20 years away from competitive golf. Tyler made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a sob. His business partners, the men he'd been so eager to impress, the ones he'd dismissed me in front of, were looking at him with expressions ranging from pity to secondhand embarrassment. She's never held a club in her life, Robert said softly, not to anyone in particular, just repeating Tyler's words. Wouldn't know which end to use. Tyler flinched as if he'd been struck. Peter, the lawyer, was the first to extend his hand to me. Ma'am, it's an honor. Thank you for your service. The others followed suit, shaking my hand with genuine respect. Their earlier dismissiveness completely evaporated. Tyler remained frozen, staring at the dropped scorecard at his feet. I need to, he gestured vaguely toward the parking lot. I need to. He walked away without finishing the sentence, his gait unsteady, his shoulders hunched. I watched him go, feeling less triumph than I'd expected. More exhaustion, more sadness for the years of unnecessary distance, the assumptions that had calcified into truth. Crawford approached me quietly. Will you stay for the award ceremony? You won your flight, probably won the overall tournament too. I don't think that's a good idea. Because of your brother. Because I shouldn't be here. Because this kind of attention is exactly what I spend my career avoiding. He nodded, understanding. For what it's worth, Captain, that was one hell of a round, made an old sailor proud. Thank you. I returned the clubs to the pro shop, declined the trophy presentation, and drove back to my apartment in my unremarkable Toyota. Tyler called 3 days later. I've been trying to figure out what to say. You don't have to say anything. I do, though. Misty, I've spent 20 years treating you like you were less than. Like you weren't successful because I couldn't measure your success in terms I understood. And you let me be an ass. You weren't being an ass, you were working with the information you had. Information I never bothered to seek out. Information you tried to share and I dismissed. His voice cracked. Do you remember your promotion to lieutenant commander? You called to tell me, and I was in the middle of a deal. I said I'd call you back. I never did. I remember. I didn't even know what lieutenant commander meant. I looked it up yesterday. It's a big deal, and I blew you off. Tyler? And the destroyer command. That's not just a promotion, is it? That's one of the highest positions in the Navy. And I've been talking to you for 6 years like you're filing paperwork in some basement office. You didn't know. Because I didn't ask. Because I assumed. Because I needed you to be less successful so I could feel more successful. The honesty was brutal, but it was honest. What you do, he continued, commanding a warship, making life-or-death decisions, serving your country, it's so far beyond what I do that I can't even quantify the difference, and I've been acting like my development deals, and golf handicap made me superior. God, Misty, I'm so sorry. I sat with the apology for a long moment. I could have told you, I said finally. I could have corrected your assumptions, but I didn't because it was easier, because operational security gave me an excuse, because some part of me enjoyed being underestimated. Why would anyone enjoy that? Because it meant expectations were low, because it meant I could move through civilian spaces without drawing attention, because in my line of work, invisibility is valuable. At what cost? At the cost of having a relationship with my brother, apparently. He was quiet for a long time. Can we fix this? Is it too late? I don't know, I said honestly. 20 years is a long time to be invisible to someone. I want to try, if you'll let me. Quote, I thought about the golf tournament, about Tom Crawford's recognition, about the moment Tyler's assumptions had shattered like dropped glass. Okay, I said, we can try. Thank you, he paused. And Misty, that golf round, that was incredible. I didn't know you had that in you. There's a lot you don't know about me. I'm starting to realize that. We've been rebuilding slowly, carefully. Tyler asks questions now. Real questions. Not assumptions disguised as conversation. He's learning about my career, my ship, the weight of command. He'll never fully understand it. How could he? He's never stood on a bridge at night, responsible for 300 lives and billions of dollars in equipment, never made decisions that could start or prevent conflicts. But he's trying to understand, and that's something. Last month he invited me to another charity event, not golf, a fundraiser for veteran services. Thought you might actually want to come to this one, he said, and I promise not to introduce you as my sister who does something vague with maps. What will you introduce me as? As Captain Misty Layton, United States Navy commanding officer, someone I'm proud to call my sister. It's not perfect, we're not perfect, But it's honest, finally, and honesty, I've learned, is harder and more valuable than any false success. The golf clubs are back in storage. The trophy from that tournament sits in a box somewhere, unclaimed. But the record, the one that still stands after 20 years, remains. Not as proof of success, but as a reminder that the most powerful achievements are often the most invisible ones, that true excellence doesn't need an audience, and that sometimes the people who know us least are the ones standing closest. I command a destroyer, I shoot 7 under par. I do both quietly, competently, without fanfare. And now, finally, my brother knows which end of the club to use. Both ends, actually.